Hello and welcome to Leeroy Gaming, where today I bring you another Outriders content video. Today we're going to be looking at the class node tree for the Trickster class. This is going to be another deep dive video of mine, so it's very important to note I'm going to go really in depth and provide you feedback on each one of the sections. So hopefully, if you're the type of individual that likes to see all the information, this is going to be the video for you. Now let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the kind of a class descriptor as far as your baseline kind of the way your stats start out. So you're going to have a melee ability that inflicts slow to all enemies within a small radius. In your healing mechanic, basically when you kill an enemy in close range, it heals you and grants you a portion of shield. Now right off the bat, my one concern for this class in multiplayer is going to be that it relies on actually doing the killing. So if other people are kill stealing you accidentally, this could be a problem. Now you're going to receive an additional 5% maximal health baseline, and activating active shields grant 5% damage mitigation. Every close range kill heals you by 20% of your maximal health and grants you 12% shielding. So the technomancer that I looked at first does it just a flat percentage of damage you deal. The pyromancer, basically you would mark targets with skills, and then when those died, either via you or I assume others, they would heal for 24% of the max health. Here, again, my one concern right off the bat is going to be the reliance on getting the kill shots. Now, there's going to be 3 different trees you can go down: Assassin, Harbringer, and Reaver. Do note that there are portions in the beginning to middle parts of the tree where you can cross over. We're going to be working at the top, looking at the top tree. Then when we look at the middle tree, we'll look at the crossovers and the bottom tree. Now, as you level up to the maximum level of 30, you will only get 20 class points. Meaning you can't even come close to maxing it out. From experimenting, you could basically get your capstone going directly, get a couple of these side big nodes, and maybe cross over just a little bit. But you're not going to be able to get 2 capstones or anything close to that. So let's see how this all plays out. If you're going to go towards the assassin side, the first mandatory node is arms tricks, increases close range weapon damage by 50%. Now, this concept of close range and long range and medium range is important. For example, the technomancer had a thing where you would lower the requirements for having something qualify as long range. So you would basically, if you had a specific build, make it that not only sniper rifles but also assault rifles would count as long range, and then there was like a big buff node for any long range weapon. So you could basically get that for assault rifles. Here, this is going to, I'm assuming, going to be shotguns and probably pistols, but that range element is important, and we'll see how this plays out as level up. Now, you're going to have an option of bullet storm, which is decrease reload time by 20%, or increase armor piercing by 15%. Could theoretically get both, but if you're working towards the big nodes, this may not be very efficient unless you really need both for some reason, as you're trying to hit capstones, and as I call them, the mini capstones. So do keep that in mind. Now the next mandatory one is death probability increases your weapon damage by 8%. Okay. Now once you get here, you could go up and get Shotgun Master. We've seen this with the previous 2 classes I've looked at, Technomancer and Pyromancer. At the very top, if each class has had at least 1 mastery node like this. This is the first one I've seen that has Shotgun Master. So it's going to baseline increase your shotgun weapon damage by 50% and increases the drop chance of shotguns by 12%. This includes pump action shotguns and automatic shotguns. So if you're specializing, this could be a decent point. Now, equilibrium is you have an option here, decreasing the cooldown of your movement skills by 15%, the 2 listed here, or increase your critical damage by 20%. Now these basically cooldown skills, this can be significant. A lot of kind of the skills that are spammable are going to have about a 20 to 24 second base cooldown that I've seen so far in that range. Now I'm sure gear can have cooldown reduction, but right off the bat, if we're doing the math on, like, say, like a 22%, a 22-second cooldown item, this 15% would be what? 10% would be 2.2 seconds, and you're gonna get an extra 1.1, so like 3.3 second cooldown. So it's noticeable, even at this one point. But you're gonna want to make this, decision here. I mean, 20% crit damage is pretty big if your crit chance is high enough. Next. Now, assuming that's, again, I do want to point out, I don't know if in this game crit damage is just like headshot damage, or if it's like percentage based, like a lot of action, like, or RPG based. So not sure, but this is never bad. Next, arm tricks increases your close range weapons by 15%. This is mandatory, so now you have a mandatory, if you're going down this route, 30% to close range weapon damage. I would also assume, it doesn't state whether your melee attack is close range weapon damage, because you're kind of using your like magic powers for the melee attacks. If this does not count melee attacks, a bit of a bummer. If it does, nice. Disruptive firepower is an option if you go up. Activation of deception skills increases your weapon damage by 50% for 8 seconds. That's big. Now, I want to point out here, where is it? Okay, so far, if you saw my technomancer and or pyromancer build, each tree only had one type of skill types that it focused on. So if you went down the top one, you would have one type of skills, middle, another type of skill in the bottom. This is the first class I've seen of the 4, and I haven't looked at the final class yet. Thank you. Well, the close combat bruiser class. But this is the first one where you have potential buffs that don't stack. They are different types of skills. So deception versus movement. So keep that in mind when kind of min-maxing your build. Moving on, singularity. You can now decrease your cooldown of your deception by another 15%. So that's big. So if you're going to focus on this weapon damage buff deception, this is probably something you definitely want to get. We also have the option to increase your armor piercing by 15%. Next, a mandatory unforeseen end. When attacking enemies from behind, all your weapons damage decreased by 20%. So this is that rogue mode. Again, melee attacks count as weapon damage. Not 100% sure, but hopefully. Sign of the Power. When your damage skill ends, increase your weapon damage by 50% for 8 seconds. So this is kind of that synergy. If you're going to be spamming damage skills, that's going to be big. So notice here now, polar opposite to the first 2 classes I mentioned. In this tree, you get potential buffs to all 3 skill elements that you get: damage, deception, and movement. So keep that in mind. Harder to min-max, but more diversity. Next, you're going to have a choice between increasing your weapon damage by 8% or increasing your close range weapon damage by 15%. So almost double the amount of damage, but much more specific. Now this character is already close combat focused, so going sniper build, probably not very efficient. So you may want to go all in and just go, you know what, I'm going to do nothing but close range combat. I'm just going to go for this. But you do have the option to do either or stack them if you just don't want to get any of the extra nodes once you have a capstone. Next, you have a mandatory increase of weapon damage by 8%. No choices there. You can go up to get, again, movement skill cooldown by 50%. So this one stacks with here. So if you were to get both of these, 30% to movement skills. And then transfusion increases your weapon leech by 5%. Now this is weapon leech. It's something that's baseline for technomancers, and they can buff it further. But both pyromancer and so far trickster both can do it, these special nodes, and it's going to basically 5% of all damage you do with your weapons will come back as health. So this is a secondary way to heal yourself outside of your your kill skill ability for healing. So this, while not mandatory, probably makes your life a lot less stressful, assuming you're going to go down equilibrium. It would be horrible if you wasted this equilibrium and, for example, chose not to use a skill, don't forget, you're going to unlock 8 skills. 3 of them you're going to be able to use at any given. All right, next you get Unforeseen End. When attacking enemies from behind, all your weapon damage decreased by another 20%. So again, you're going to go for that Rogue Backstabby build here. This is again mandatory as you go. Now you get 40%. So you're going to want to maybe use those skills to get behind enemies and just blow them up from behind. And then optionally you can get Bounty Hunter, increases your weapon damage against elites by 50%. So nice bonus, only against the really toughies. So that's where you probably want it, but keep that in mind. All right, next you get Oddity Summation, increases your magazine size by 50%. And again, this is the first class I've seen that actually allows you to use your reload skill, potentially. I don't know where we saw that. Maybe I was thinking of the other class, since I'm going to back to back. But bigger magazine size, 50% is significant, especially so you can avoid it. It's not like a 50% damage buff or anything like that, but that downtime when you have to reload can be different life and death. Next, you have an option of Assault Adept, increase your assault weapon damage by 12%, or increase your shotgun damage by 12%. Now, assault weapons are considered, I would say, like medium ranged. So nothing else so far has really focused on medium range. So if you've ignored all the nodes for close combat and you're just getting the baseline weapon 8%, really want assault weapons, I could see this the choice. But if you're going close combat, you're probably picking shotguns or maybe pistols, so this may use more often. And then your capstone here is cold calculation. Each enemy in close range, your weapon damage is increased by 8%. So if you got a swarm of enemies, this is for you. Very high risk, high reward. If you're jumping in an area of a bunch of enemies, you just have to be careful, obviously. You could easily just get overwhelmed. All right, so that is Assassin Tree. Now let's look at the Harbringer. Oh my goodness. Harbinger. Fine. So you start with, just like with the first 2 classes I've looked at, pyromancer, technomancer, the middle tree tends to be forces extra health and kind of the most pure tanky survival line, although they all play out just a little different. So increase of 10% health here mandatory. Then you have an option of increasing your resistance by 15%, or receive 20% less damage from elites. That's pretty nice, because again, those are the ones that are probably going to hit the hardest. That's not bad at all. Another mandatory 10% increase to health. And now you can choose to cross over top. Again, you can also cross over downwards from Assassin, but if you cross over up, you're going to get Leap of Quintus. Activating movement skills increases your armor piercing by 50% for 10 seconds. If you were to keep going up, you get increasing your close range weapons by 50%. Again, more likely something that the Assassin would dip down into, but it's still there. And then if you go all the way out of the way here, you get Cycle of Life and Death. Gain an additional 10% health for each enemy that died at close range. So that basically increases this healing from 20% to 30%. But notice it doesn't increase shielding, so it's just the health, not the shielding. All right, next, go to the right. You have an option of Shields Timeline. Decreases your shield degeneration rate by 30%. So again, I haven't played with this mechanic too much, but it sounds like you build up the shield through killing things, but then it deteriorates over time, so this lasts longer, potentially very helpful. And then weakness afflicted on enemies lasts 30% longer. So again, unfortunately, it doesn't give you a descriptor of weakness here, but it's going to last longer. I have found in games like this, unless you're doing really high-level content, enemies are really bullet spongy. This is not as useful early game, but later on, if you're like take forever to kill, basically having debuffs on enemies longer to get more out of them can be useful. But yet again, because you only get 20 points, that may be a luxury. Next, you have a mandatory, increase to 10% health if you don't want to go right. And then you have choices of immunity. Ironic, because it's only 15%. And again, it's not clear whether resistance is versus special effects like debuffs, freezes, etc., or damage resistances. But either way, it's going to be 15%. Or you can decrease your shield degeneration speed by an additional 30%. So you could have basically 60% decrease at that point. Again, I don't know what the actual calculation is for the decrease, so that 30% may be a big deal, or it may not be. Constantly in combat, it barely make a difference. Next, singularity. It decreases the cooldown on your deception skill tree, deception skills by 15%. So the other area where you get this is up here. So to get the full 30%, unlike the pyromancer and technomancer classes so far, where they had both of them that match to get 30% on the same skill line, here you have to cross over if you want to maximize this. So keep that in mind if you really want to go big on deception. Now the optional point here is mitigation and motion. When your damage skills end, increase your damage mitigation by 10% for 10 seconds. It's not the biggest mitigation. Some of the other classes I've seen like 40%. And also, again, if you're min-maxing and you want to focus on damage skills, if you take a look, we had seen a damage buff up here. So again, want to combo this big requirement crossover. So you're either really pushing it, getting those extra nodes, or maybe you're just choosing not to get capstone. That's an option as well. Maybe you're messing around in the middle here with these nodes and just getting a lot of crossovers, but not necessarily the capstone. Something to keep in mind. Okay, coming back. Sorry, where were we? There. So next you have an option of anomaly cloak. Increase your armor by 20%. Again, more tankiness. Or increases shield gain by 10%. So again, not sure if this is additive or multiplicative, but it's likely that this is going to be 12 plus 10%, so that'll be 2%. And that probably is pretty darn good for this build. You know, you're already going to be kind of squishy, so I don't know how high your armor is going to be, but just getting more and more shields when you're mass killing things, this is probably the way to go most of the time. Next, you can get your shield regeneration additional 30%. So again, if these are additive, you can have 90%. Does that mean it almost never regenerates or degenerates? Maybe. Long odds. For each enemy in close range, your armor is increased by 15%. So, unlike this one, this again may incentivize you to be around a bunch of stuff. Your armor can get kind of nutty there. And again, I'm not sure if this is additive or multiplicative with this. That would make a big difference. And obviously, if this multiplicative of this, then you would want to combo these for sure. If not, then this may still be optional. Next, another anomaly persistence, so 10% more health. Again, note, if you've made it all the way here, just straight across, you will have now 40% extra health. It's nothing to sneeze. And then you get profit squared. Every ammo pickup heals you for 5% of your maximum health. That's not bad. You know, a lot of enemies drop ammo packs all over the place. Now, if you have max ammo, I guess you just shoot a bullet and pick it up. But this is not bad. It's not as predictable because, you know, you're not guaranteed to have ammo drop, and you may not need it all the times. But again, mandatory and doesn't hurt. Finally, the final set of choices is shield increases your damage mitigation while your shield is active by an additional 6%. That's nice, since hopefully you're keeping that up. You're constantly killing things and keeping it up, but it is situational. It'd be nice if this was a little higher while shielding, because again, it's not a flat mitigation at all times. It's only when shields are up. So you would think this would be a little higher. Might need some balancing, but we'll see. And then you can choose to increase your armor an additional 20%. So again, if we're talking about armor build, it's a little weird, but for somebody this kind of, I don't know, roguish. But get this, that's 40%, assuming it's additive. And then over here, this can get really high up there. If it's multiplicative with that 40%, woo, additive, still not bad. And then a capstone, disruptive shield. Again, I laugh a little bit because you've got the deception thing way over there. This seems like it's going to main deception line. So are you going to go here and all the way over here? You can. But again, you're not going to be left with very many more extra bonus points. But every activation of deception skill grants you 20% shield. That's nice. I mean, that is really nice. So this is a second way to get your shielding up, keep your mitigation up while you're shielded, etc. Build, shield tanking mode. And again, reality, could also get your armor quite high. So even you may not think of this class as tanky, quote unquote, by the way it kind of looks and moves, but you could make it quite tough. All right, final line, the Reaver line here. So it begins with concentration, increasing your anomaly power by 6%. And again, anomaly power is skill power. There's only weapon power and weapon damage and anomaly power. So 6% damage of all your skills. Then you choose between disturbance coating, so increasing your resistance piercing. So pierce more likely to land, I'm assuming, effects like etc. All the debuffs by 10%. Or you can get increased skill leech by 6%. So again, this class does not have a lot of leech opportunities in the skill tree. I believe it's this one, and there was like one more way up here. Yeah, for weapon leech. So so far 101, but for skill leech in particular, there's going to be some down this line at the bottom, as we'll see in a second. Next mandatory option, increasing anomaly power by another 6%. So now you got a mandatory 12% total. If you go up to the crossover, activation of melee skills increase your anomaly power by 30% for 5 seconds. It's pretty nice for just hitting your melee attack. Against the odds, when surrounded by enemies, reloading your weapon deals 8 damage and interrupts enemy abilities. Damage scales of anomaly power. So again, you could cross over down, especially if you like this melee skill thing from the middle tree, if you really wish to. But again, you're going to want to have as much anomaly power as possible for this for the scaling. Because again, this is level 1, so that's why it's only 8. And interrupting skills, that potentially could be really, really good. And then if you really go out of your way, you can get Cycle of Life and Death. Gain additional 10% health for each enemy that died at close range. That's quite nice. And notice it's here as well. So if you're going this midline, this tanky build, you could cross over both ways, pick this up. Assuming it's additive, this means every time you kill something in melee, it would give you 40% of your maximum health, assuming it's additive. So that could be. Alright, coming back to hero, you can go down instead and get Assault Master. So increases your assault weapon damage by 7% for each unlocked concentration class node. Now concentration, see which one is that? That's this one right here. So it's interesting. Every time you pick up a node, that increases your skill power. If you pick this up, it's going to pick up your assault weapon power. So right now, you have 2 of them, and spoiler alert, you're going to have a couple more options here. So technically, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You could get 7 of these. So what is that? 7 times 7, what is that, 49, I believe, if my math is right. So that can be really good if you pick that up. And also, you increase your assault weapon drop chance by 12%. And that includes assault rifles, light machine guns, submachine guns, and double guns. So that is very interesting how that can synergize by high level. You can make assault weapons quite deadly with this build. As we saw, increase anomaly power by 6%. And again, if you're going for this assault build, you probably want that. Also going to probably want this if you get against all odds. They both scale anomaly power. Or you can decrease your cooldown of your damage skills by 50%. And again, nothing to say you can't do both. The cooldown ones can be pretty powerful, considering, again, you're going to be this part of the tree getting massive amounts of skill power damage. Why not spam it more often? As long as you're picking one of those ones that's damage focused, which again makes sense. Next, another concentration that's mandatory. Now, if you cross north, you can get Withering Scythe. Class melee skill inflicts weakness to all enemies hit. This is the first time we've seen the mention of melee skill. So if you saw earlier in the video, I was talking about these buffs to close range weapon damage, and I wasn't sure if melee counted. This is making me feel maybe it doesn't, which would be unfortunate, meaning there's not that many ways so far to boost your melee damage. Hopefully it does stack, but not sure at this point. If anybody knows and wants to help us out, leave a comment below. If you've actually tried it out and done the calculations and confidently say whether it does or not, that'd be helpful. You can also, if you keep going deeper to the side here, increase your shield gain by 10%. Again, that's useful. You can either cross over from the Harbringer or use it from this bottom one. And it's going to, assuming again it's additive, that extra 10%. Now whenever you kill something with close range kills, you're going to get 22%. Oh, okay. So I may have answered my own question, because if you take a look at here, Trickster ability says every close range kill heals you by 20%. So it would be absolutely nuts if the melee did not count at this point, because it would mean, oh, with a close range shotgun blast, you can get this effect, but you can't when you melee. So that's potentially good news. Just their wording is a little confusing as far as the descriptors, but now it's actually making me feel more confident that this will work, which then makes this melee build on top much more useful. You may even want to consider crossing over here at the middle to get this weakness infliction of your melee attacks, even if you're going in assassin build. So think about. All right, let's move on. Did I mention this one? So just in case not, this is activating your deception skill, increases anomaly power by 50% for 10 seconds. So again, here's the one frustration with this class. Their buffs are all over the place. If you want to min-max deception, you literally have to go all over the place. Here's a deception buff. Here's a deception buff. Here's a deception buff. So could you, in theory, go down to center and go up and down? Let's do a really quick look just based off this, out of curiosity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yes. So you could get all of the main buffs for deception with doing minimum the minimum node locations to get to the capstone and Harbringer, but it means you cannot get any of the mini capstones or any of the other side bets. You just have to go there, and you literally get one other option. So keep that in mind. All right, let's keep on going. Moving down, atrophy, weakness afflicted on enemies lasts 30% longer. And disturbance coating increases your resistance piercing by 10%. Again, weakness duration. Again, I have a feeling like a lot of the weak stuff's going to die really quick. High levels may be more viable when they're more bullet spongy. This is always good if things have resistances. So I would probably go with this one most of the time. And then an additional increase of 6% to your anomaly power. Then you have the option of activating your movement skill. Increases anomaly power by 50%. Awesome. Oh yeah, by the way, where is that decrease to cooldown of movement skills? Oh, it's, where was it? Here. So, very polarizing. I'm a big min-maxer when it comes to games like this. So it can be a little frustrating that things are so all over the place and not being able to fully min-max, but again, there's sacrifice to be made. This is, though, however, even if you don't go and get this cooldown node, 50% more basically skill power for 10 seconds. That is so good, especially with all these anomalies. That's nuts. Very, very good synergy. All right, moving on. You can increase your skill leech by 6%. So again, combo of this, your anomaly power gets sky high. You're doing a ton of damage abilities, etc. And now you're leeching more health back. Good for survival. And/or you have the option to increase your anomaly power more. So maybe that mix min-max deception build, 1 extra point. Maybe it's over here. No. All right, moving on. Another mandatory concentration for that 6% anomaly power. And then you can go as an option down to continuum. This is the cooldown of your damage skill by 15%. Awesome. Again, where do we see the other damage power? I forget now. But again, it's going with that same theme. There it is. Here's another damage kind of synergistic one. So around the corner. Decreases the cooldown of your damage skills by 15%. And then when your damage skill ends, increases your anomaly power by 50%. So this build, it really is screaming to me. Make sure you have at least one movement ability, at least one damage ability. You probably will. Spam them back to back. Increases your anomaly power after that by 100%. So maybe do move skill. Then your first damage ability is going to be 50% more. Spam your second ability. and that one's going to have 100% more. And then if your cooldown's low enough, maybe before that 10-second timer is done, maybe you'll spam another one. So not surprisingly, this is like this class has ridiculous potential for skill damage. All right, let's go back to mandatory skills. Increase your skill leech by 6%. And again, I don't think it has to be said. That crazy combo I just mentioned, you're just gonna be, your life is gonna go to full. Like, man, just amazing. All right, optional leap of clinchers. Activating your movement skill increases your resistance piercing by 15% for 10 seconds. We have other ways of getting that resistance piercing, depending on how resistant enemies get. This this could be very optional. But again, who knows, higher difficulty, maybe that 15%, it's huge. But it's not as good as 15% extra damage. So, Sign of the Void, at the end of any damage skill, increase your armor piercing by 30% and resistance piercing by 25% for 10 seconds. Yeah, wow. And now I think about it, I wonder if resistance piercing has to do with resistance versus skills. I don't know. But this is really good against, tough targets that have high armor, high resistance. I'm guessing the bosses and elite characters. So obviously it's mandatory if you get this far. A good incentive not to diversify and get a capstone. Final choice here. Shadow's Embrace. Your firepower is increased by 15% of your anomaly power. Again, not a fan of them changing the words. Is firepower weapon damage as opposed to anomaly power? I'm gonna guess yes. Maybe they didn't change this keyword. Or is firepower both? Probably not. I'm gonna guess this is 50% weapon damage. If it is, this basically again scales. The more skill power, the more weapon power you have. Again, is gonna build on top of this here, where if you specialize in assault weapons, let's say, get all those concentrations, you get that, and just your assault, I would probably, this build, just be assault weapons and skills running around like crazy. And not necessarily backstabbing. The backstabbing would be like up here with assassin. So, run and gun, that is the Reaver. And the bottom is, you will not be healed for each enemy that dies in close range. Instead, shield gain will be increased by an additional 20%. Not sure how I feel about that. As we've seen, you can get this up to 40, or sorry, we think 22 or 32%. So this could be huge on shielding if you don't get your health down. But then, if you don't get this effect, it's very hard for you. You basically have to rely, I guess, on skill each to get your health up. So this could be potentially very viable, but it's a big sacrifice. So certain builds will use it, but be careful. Make sure you have the appropriate, like, don't skip the life transfers leeches. Like, if you don't pick up these two, I would not probably pick up this one, because you want to be able to regen your health somehow. And finally, altered execution. For each enemy in close range, your anomaly power is increased by 10%. Wow. Okay, can we imagine now doing that combo I mentioned earlier to buff your anomaly by 50%? Get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% for this. And then let's say there's an additional 3 or 4 enemies around you. Again, what is close range? That 2 feet, 5 feet? I don't know. But let's say there's an additional 3 or 4 enemies around you, 30 to 40%. Again, is it additive? Is it multiplicative? Depending on the math, this could be beyond broken, or it could be really good. Either way, it's going to be. So there you go, guys. That is the third class I've gone over, the Trickster. Hope this has helped you. If you like this content and you like what you see from my channel, make sure to like and subscribe to help my little tiny channel out. Again, this is Leeroy with Leeroy Gaming. I'm going to see you guys next time.